Chapter 9. Daniel had never experienced a dinner like the one presented by Shaw. It began with a fresh green salad and a seafood appetizer and culminated in a main course of marbled steak, vegetables, potatoes, and a mushroom cream sauce. They'd also been presented with an option for lamb, but Daniel noted everyone opted for beef. Given what had happened in the vid Guerrero had shown Anna and Lisa earlier in the day, he wasn't surprised. They dined in a private room at the Tower of Texas, a newer structure that hosted a restaurant at the top of its 56 floors. It wasn't the tallest building in Houston, but it reached high enough for a commanding view of its surroundings, and more importantly, gave patrons sufficient elevation above those unable to afford such luxuries. Their room had a single wall of glass doubling as a window to the outside, and three more made of solid oak that granted the occupants privacy from the remainder of the restaurant. Everything on the table was real, none of it synthesized. All told, he estimated the meal cost what he and Anna budgeted for 3 months to feed their small family. 5 diners surrounded an exquisite walnut table: Councilwoman Shaw, her husband Rakesh, Lisa, Anna, and himself. Daniel found the councilwoman as charismatic and charming as he expected she would be. She wore a bright red, eye-catching evening gown, elegant and refined. Rakesh sat quietly beside her in his dark, tailored suit. He spent most of the dinner listening to the others talk, but occasionally interjecting a well-timed joke. Daniel decided he liked the man. Lisa looked as attractive as always in a low-cut blue dress Daniel assumed she'd selected both for comfort and provocation, loose enough to hide the dressing for her wound, yet shaped to garner attention. Her movements were more delicate than usual, but she still managed to enjoy more of the wine without blinking than Daniel would drink in a month. Shaw kept up with her glass for glass, and the two seemed to get along like long-lost friends. This, he thought, despite the disturbing vid Anna told him about, the vid that cast a shadow over Shaw. Anna had opted for a navy business dress, while Daniel chose a complimenting light gray jacket with a tie that matched her outfit. He drank the dark red wine along with the others, but savored the bitter flavor at a much slower pace. Daniel appreciated they had been served the real thing, not synthetic alcohol, but didn't have Lisa and Shaw's taste for it. As they ate, their conversation ranged from small-talk pleasantries to inquiries into the previous adventures of the two agents. Anna and Lisa obliged with stories of their numerous cases, Lisa injecting an enhanced sense of danger and adventure, no doubt fueled by the night's spirits. When the discussion shifted to Daniel's work, he explained his position as a teacher of social history, which inevitably brought up the former President Graves and his rise to power, his violent removal, and the aftermath which formed the Unified States. This flowed into a summary of MMD invention and development. As the two most important events of the last century, Daniel was forever discussing these topics whenever people learned of his occupation. Rakesh, a wood artisan, spoke with a sparkle in his eye of some of his favorite pieces, beaming when he described a rendering of his wife that was now on display in the Houston Council Hall. Daniel observed that, aside from recounting the Graves coup d'etat, no political discourse took place during the meal. When a waiter delivered the dessert of chocolate mousse and a side of strawberries, the councilwoman gave the table a broad smile and broached the subject he suspected had been the true motive for the dinner. "I am so thankful to have met you all. Lisa and Anna, I hope you do not underestimate what you have done, not only for me, but for this country." Anna opened her mouth to respond, but Lisa jumped in first. "We certainly don't. What you have accomplished for the city is nothing short of revolutionary." Daniel chuckled to himself, careful to keep the sound inaudible. Though he didn't have the close relationship with Lisa that Anna did, he knew she possessed little interest in politics. If she'd given Shaw's accomplishments for this city much thought before tonight, he would be shocked. Her parents, who did something in synthetics and ran in similar circles to Shaw, were a more likely source of her admiration. Them, and maybe the wine. While Lisa held her liquor well, she wasn't unaffected, a fact Shaw didn't miss. The councilwoman responded to the compliment with a slight bow forward. "You are too kind, Lisa. But this picture is far larger than me. There is a political war being waged over matter manipulation technology, and precious few realize it's happening." This new direction piqued Daniel's interest, and he put down his dessert spoon. "What kind of war?" Shaw turned to him. "The most dangerous kind, Daniel. The kind that determines the fate of a nation." She spread her hands out in front of her, gesturing at the table. "I know this is how people see me, and I admit I relish the perks that come with this job. But I am here because I had a vision for this country, not for myself. A vision that we need to work to harness matter manipulation and bring MMD technology to every person, wealthy or poor. Daniel found himself nodding, well versed in this history. 35 years ago, MMDs were a luxury for the elite. The ultra rich used them to transform their estates, clothes, furniture, virtually all inanimate objects they possessed, and some they didn't. Esoteric art with continuously shifting properties floated in many expensive homes in the early days, but nowhere else. Then Shaw placed her big bet on Feeney using Texas tax dollars, and almost overnight, MMDs were affordable for the common person. Even most of those on basic income owned at least one. And while this initially led to a creative period of many strange and imaginative creations, in the end, most people settled on using MMDs for the things that made their lives easier and more comfortable. Gone was the esoteric art. The elites had no love for it when it was available to all, and consequently, no longer proclaimed their status. Very few people disputed the credit due Shaw for the ubiquity of matter manipulation technology. But, as she was telling them, her deal with Feeney had started a war that was still ongoing today. My legacy is under threat. Not all elites agree with what I've done. They don't want to share their power with the people. Daniel frowned. Isn't it a bit late to erect that door? MMDs are everywhere. That fact is what keeps my wife employed. Anna agreed with a gentle smile. Yes, Lisa and I know better than anyone how many devices are on the streets, both legal and illegal. Shaw was undeterred. Of course, but things can change. While I humbly count MMD accessibility as my legacy, there are those who want to turn back the clock. Don't underestimate what politics can do. Do you know who Director Kathleen Redmond is? Daniel nodded. She's Strickland's head of national security. She is, and as such, she has a decidedly different view about how we should separate civilian and government MMDs. I've listened to the discourse. As I understand it, Redmond wants Feeney to create a special line of hardware designed for the military and focus their development resources there. Civilian MMDs would evolve with less speed in the future. That's right. Though you can be sure even non-government elites would find a way to get their hand on Redmond's advanced MMDs. As I know well, money can buy just about anything. Daniel didn't respond. Her words might be cynical, but they were also true. Shaw lifted up a finger to accentuate her point. I've always held to the idea that we should develop a single line of hardware, with no differences between civilian and military units. This approach is how Feeney, and by extension the U.S., became the world leader in MMD technology. Redmond wants to compel Feeney to diversify, which will both slow down their progress and give the government more control. I have always stood against this, and always will. Redmond and I have been locking horns for years. Daniel understood Feeney's position, but it was not lost on him that their lack of diversification was beneficial to the company's bottom line, not to mention Shaw's. And if, as Anna told him, Feeney was developing non-failsafe MMDs capable of manipulating living matter, everything Shaw had just said was rank hypocrisy. They were diversifying, only doing so in secret. Shaw shifted her focus to Anna and Lisa. All of which brings me to my point. Are you aware that Guerrero works for Redmond? Lisa straightened in her chair. She does? She does. The MMD agency you work for was founded under the banner of national security, which means you ultimately answer to Redmond. But while several layers lie between you and her, Guerrero is her pet. They've worked together for years, with Guerrero bringing the MMD agency into line with Redmond's goals. And now this all puts you two in the middle of our war, I'm afraid. Keep this in mind as you dig into the attempts to assassinate me. Guerrero is not an ally. She'll try to subvert me in any way she can, and now that includes subverting you as well. Anna grimaced. I don't think she needs much motivation in my case. Shaw spread her hands out again. Why do you think she's after you? Because you saved me. That was your sin, right from the start. So be careful, ladies. If Guerrero has a chance to implicate me in anything untoward, she won't hesitate to do so. And if you have the opportunity to do something about that, well, consider whose side you're on. Daniel tried not to let his reaction show, but realized Shaw was issuing a barely concealed threat. Maybe she even knew about the vid and its implications for her. Was she asking Anna to do something about it? His wife stared back at Shaw with a hint of defiance. Councilwoman, I'm on the side of doing what is right. Shaw studied her, then gave her a slow nod of approval. That's all I ask, Anna. I assure you, Guerrero is not here to see justice done. Washington doesn't care about justice. I do." The table fell into silence, and then, almost forgotten, Rakesh belted out a good-natured guffaw that cut through the tension. His eyes swept the room. "Washington is a pit of vipers. They want Savitri as one of their own, but she won't join them. Too bad. I think she could teach them a thing or two." Shaw looked at him with a fond smile, and Daniel noticed something tender in her expression, a sudden real emotion beneath the political veneer she'd worn throughout the meal. "They are safe from me, at least for now." She reached down and touched her husband's leg. The conversation moved on, and as Daniel finished the last of his chocolate mousse, he glanced at Anna and saw concern in her eyes. She didn't like being threatened, nor did she want to be caught between Guerrero and Shaw. She wanted to focus on finding those responsible for the murder of 7 people. He felt the same.
Anna stood with Daniel and Lisa as their bus left the Tower of Texas, eschewing the seats for a chance to stretch their legs after a long meal spent sitting down. The vehicle contained no other passengers, save for a group of 3 men in their 20s seated at the far end of the bus. Now that she was out of the restaurant, Anna reached up to her data lens and brought Simon online. The law forbade bringing an AI into a private meeting outside an active investigation, and doing so with a councilwoman was akin to poking a hungry bear. Simon spoke in his usual polite tone. "How was the dinner?" Lisa glowed. "It was wonderful. The food was delicious, and oh, that view!" Leaning a bit to one side, she caught herself. She'd made quite a night of it, but Anna sensed she was pressing through some pain. Anna reached out to help steady her. "I think we'll ride with you to your apartment." Daniel nodded. "I agree." Lisa cocked her head and smirked. "What, like chaperones? You two are so—" She searched for a word that never came. Daniel chuckled and offered Anna a knowing glance. Something like that. Call it the teacher in me." "I'm pretty sure I can take care of myself." Anna pulsed her hand, still on Lisa's shoulder. "That's what I'm afraid of." "You got that right." Lisa barked out a laugh too loud for the space, and the men on the other end of the bus looked up, taking notice. Anna knew her partner wasn't drunk, but had pushed it during dinner. She felt glad, pleased to see Lisa this way, a contrast to the past 2 days full of wincing and touching her side gingerly. The 3 descended into silence, riding the bus into the night. Anna observed her husband's glazed expression as he stared out a window and guessed he'd also been bothered by the conversation with Shaw. She caught his attention with a sigh. "I'm not sure what to think." "About Shaw?" Lisa was oblivious to the new vibe. "She's wonderful, beautiful, and smart, and such fantastic food." Daniel allowed the hint of a playful smile. "And wine." She grinned back. "And wine." Anna didn't contribute to the levity, still ruminating over Shaw's veiled threat. "She put on a good dinner, but what she said at the end, it's almost like she knew we had a vid implicating her." This statement appeared to sober Lisa, who grew a touch more clear-eyed. "I'm trying not to think about that. That's for Carrie and Lucas to work out." Lisa was right, but Anna struggled to dismiss the subject. She didn't like uncertainties hanging over her. Glancing around, it suddenly occurred to her they weren't alone. "We should probably discuss this later." Daniel and Lisa both nodded. Unfortunately, the whisper seemed to be a trigger, because one of the 3 men from the other side of the bus picked that moment to stand up and approach them. Dressed in a maroon tank top that exposed his thick arms, he strode in their direction, pushing stringy blonde hair out of his eyes. His companions rose to their feet and trailed close behind, one wearing a black T-shirt with the logo of some band Anna didn't recognize, the other a leather jacket over a plain white undershirt. The blonde man entered their space.
"What's the big secret, ladies?"
He ignored Daniel entirely. Anna straightened, conscious of the void at her waist where her service weapon would be when she was on duty. Lisa cooed at the man, both dismissive and sexual at the same time. "Nothing you need to worry yourself about, boys." Anna's eyes slid shut in exasperation. She couldn't think of a worse way to de-escalate. But then, that was the point. Lisa didn't want to de-escalate. The man appraised Lisa.
Maybe I'll decide what I worry about. You seem very smart.
He said the last word with clear disdain.
But smart isn't everything.
Daniel addressed the man with an edge of warning in his voice. You guys should back off. The man arched his eyebrows.
I'm just talking to these attractive women. Don't do something stupid.
Anna reopened her eyes and tried to force a calmness into her voice. Is there something we can help you with? He shifted his weight and cocked his head.
I'm just wondering what it feels like to dress up so fine and eat so well. I haven't had a nice dinner in, well, I don't remember.
He turned to his friends.
How about you guys?
The man in the t-shirt made an exaggerated show of thought.
I can't think of a time.
His other companion only shrugged. The blond man continued.
I can wear clothes like yours.
He pulled out a pocket-sized MMD and waved it over himself, changing his tank top and jeans into a suit.
You gonna let me join your fancy dinner?
Anna understood what this was. Jealousy, anger, rage. The emotions of the kind of men who believed they'd been left behind by a world now running on human ingenuity and creativity rather than raw strength. They would say feminine ingenuity and creativity, though it wasn't true, but they found their identity in acts of violence. And Lisa had no intention of letting it play out any other way. She purred at him. We're done with dinner, sweetie, but there's always room for dessert. He glared, then waved his device again, changing his clothes back.
My dessert is respect.
He peered down at his arm, bulging it for emphasis, then looked back up at her. The menace in his eyes dominated his features.
Once, it meant something to be a man.
Lisa responded with nothing but a coquettish smile. It still means something. Anna spoke evenly, trying to pull his attention away from her partner. We all have our gifts. He wouldn't be diverted, his lips and eyes morphing into a leer.
And what exactly do you think I'm good for?
Lisa tapped her data lens, obvious with the gesture. Well, I'm pretty sure I can find that out easily enough. She paused. Oh, I've found you, Mr. Rod Bolton, and it didn't take much. You're listed in the Cupid catalog multiple times. Let's see what your lovers have to say. Rod gawked at her, frozen in place. Anna bent into a slight crouch, ready to spring if he made any sudden movement. Daniel continued to stand back and watch the scene unfold, his demeanor etched into a deep frown. Lisa's voice became a playful taunt. Oh, Rod, not good. Seems you're one of the selfish ones, not something a girl likes to read. He growled.
See, you don't respect me, but that's your mistake. I will make you respect me.
Without warning, he lunged at Lisa like an animal pouncing on its prey. The others advanced at the same time, though slower and with more calculation. Anna struck faster than Rod, and an instant later he lay sprawled across the floor of the bus with her body astride him, her legs surrounding his torso and a hand twisting his right arm behind his back. For him, she didn't need a weapon.
What?
He stammered in confusion, realization dawning that he was immobilized. The other two men continued toward Lisa, who darted forward to meet them, executing a kick into the stomach of the man in the leather jacket, and then spinning to thrust the palm of her hand into the chest of the other. Both staggered back, clutching at the points of impact. As they recovered, Lisa dropped into a fighting stance. She cackled at them, her eyes narrowed with danger. You should help your friend up, but maybe don't be too quick about it. They paused, nervous at her words and posture, and the injury she'd already inflicted on them. Rod lay at their feet, helpless to do anything in Anna's grip. She grunted at him, clipping her words for emphasis. I'm going to let you go. Don't be stupid. After a brief moment in which he made no struggle against her, she released his arm and loosened the tension in her legs. He slithered away to his friends, who helped him up, each eyeing Lisa apprehensively as they did so. Anna rose to her feet and crouched down beside her partner, facing off against the three men. Behind her, she heard Daniel instruct the bus to dock at the next available station. 30 seconds passed, and no one moved, more of a Cold War than a truce. When the vehicle stopped and the door disappeared, Daniel addressed the men in a cool voice. I think we've reached your exit. Fire filled Rod's eyes, but he didn't advance on the women. He stood defiantly still for another few seconds, then turned to leave.
Let's go.
The 3 men exited, and the door sprang back into existence behind them. When they were gone, Lisa grabbed at her side, pain evident in her face. She leaned against the wall of the bus as it started moving again and shook her head. "Oh, I didn't need your help, my chaperones. I could have handled them." Anna gave her the faintest smile. "I know. You weren't the one I was protecting." Lisa shot her a side eye. "Maybe so. I hope we left them something to remember for the next time." "There needs to not be a next time. We can turn in a recording and have them arrested for assault. Simon, did you get all that?" No response. "Simon?" Still nothing. Daniel frowned. "What's going on?" "Simon's offline." Lisa shook her head in confusion. "But he was just with us." "He was." Anna tried to initiate a connection to the agency's data center, but her request was denied. She then tried the agency proper and received the same result. Even the containment lockdown, located a floor below the data center, gave her an error. This last was the most alarming, as someone should be on duty and able to answer. Were they gone, or were communications cut off? Neither answer was good. She looked up at Lisa and Daniel as anxiety flooded her senses. Someone's attacking the agency.